Greetings, fellow Toastmasters, and welcome to Mastering Meeting Roles as we talk about the General Evaluator role. Now, this presentation was designed for Celebration Kenner Toastmasters in Kenner, Louisiana. I know that every club does things a little differently, and so get what you can from this as it applies to your personal club, and feel free to pass it on if you'd like to. Let's look at the General Evaluator role. The General Evaluator is responsible for a number of things. First, they need to coordinate with their team ahead of time. So whoever is the timer, whoever's doing the eye counting or grammarian role, whoever is the evaluator of each speech, those are the people you need to coordinate with. Make sure the evaluators know where to find the evaluation forms. Make sure the timer has some type of device. Make sure the grammarian has chosen a word of the day and is prepared to present it. I know some clubs have a word of the day person, and it's separate from the eye counter and the grammarian. Our club combines the roles. We have one role called WAG Master, and the WAG Master is W, word of the day, A, eye counter, and G, grammarian. That spells WAG. And so that's where that came from. The WAG Master comes up with the word of the day. So when you coordinate with the WAG Master, make sure they know the theme if there is one and it's been publicized, so that they can pick a word that would fit well with the theme. Make sure they're going to be prepared to put that word in the chat if you're on Zoom, or write it somewhere in a physical meeting, that it's displayed properly. And of course, you want to make sure your timer has signaling devices, either in the form of cards or screen backgrounds that they can use for red, yellow, and green. Also make sure they have some type of timing device, such as a stopwatch or a cell phone with a clock on it that has seconds, etc. So just make sure they know what they're doing and coordinate with them. You want to also make sure they're going to actually show up for the meeting. The next thing is you want to confirm the agenda with the Toastmaster. Now, if this is done right and everybody's communicating, the agenda is being updated regularly by the Vice President of Education or whoever in your club handles it. Sometimes it's the Toastmaster of the day that handles it. Our club, it's the VPE. I am the VPE. And as the VPE, I send the agenda out 2 or 3 times a week and coordinate with everyone. And if they have to drop a role, they let me know. But you need to be on top of that as the general evaluator and make sure you are seeing those agenda updates and coordinating with the Toastmaster and VPE as needed. At the meeting itself, you want to explain your role as the general evaluator and then introduce your team. In our club, this happens right after the Toastmasters opening introduction. But the president of the club starts the meeting, introduces the Toastmaster. The Toastmaster then talks about the theme of the day, shares what it's going to be, and a few points about the theme. And then they introduce the general evaluator, who in turn introduces their team and explains their own role. So you, as the general evaluator, need to be prepared to explain what the general evaluator does, and that all of what you do culminates in the reports that will come at the end. So you will explain that, have each of your team members introduce themselves. In our club, we don't always have the evaluators say anything because everything they need to say will be said during their evaluations. But I have been to clubs where the evaluators are introduced and each evaluator reads the purpose of the speech that the speaker is giving and gives a little comment about what they're looking for in the speech. If you have time for that, that's always a nice addition. But if you don't, and as we do in our club, the Celebration Kenner, we simply mention who the evaluators will be and who is evaluating whom. Then you want to introduce your timer and then the other participants if it's grammarian, an eye counter, or in our case, it's the WAG master, and have each of them explain their role. Part of coordinating with them ahead of time, too, is making sure that they know how to do their role and that they are prepared for it. So make sure they know they're going to need to introduce themselves. Also, during the meeting, you're going to observe and listen carefully. One of the challenges when you're serving in a role is also paying attention to what's happening. And so it's your job as the general evaluator at the end of the meeting to give feedback to everyone that is on your team. You're not going to evaluate the speaker. Your evaluator should have already done that in their job. But what you can do is give feedback to the Toastmaster. How did they do? Did they keep the meeting going on time? Did they do everything they were supposed to do? Was their theme well received? Did they keep the bullet points short and keep the meeting moving? The table topic master, did they choose great questions? Did they ask the question first and then call on someone? This is really important when you're a table topic master, and we'll talk about that in the table topic master video. So you look at that type of thing when you're evaluating the table topic master. And then you want to say, how did your evaluators do? Did they give constructive feedback that is useful? Did they explain and give examples where needed? And you also evaluate the timer and the WAG master in our case, or the eye counter and grammarian. You want to give them some feedback as well. Were they paying attention? Did they catch all of the filler words, et cetera, et cetera? So you want to be prepared to give that evaluation. You're going to evaluate timeliness, enthusiasm, preparation, organization, and performance of duties of everyone at the meeting, making notes and remembering what it is they did well and what they could do to improve. You'll present all your reports at the end of the meeting or toward the end of the meeting. So first, when you're called back up to the lectern, you'll introduce each speech evaluator. Once the speech evaluations are finished, you'll move on to the timer to give the timer the opportunity to say the word of the day. And then the final report is the eye counter grammarian, or in our case, the WAG master, gives their report. Then the general evaluator takes back the lectern and concludes with the general evaluation of the meeting. And then you turn it back over to the Toastmaster or to the presiding officer, depending on what you've agreed to with the Toastmaster. If you have any questions, just give me a holler via email. I'm always happy to help. Cheers.